What's up, Warriors? Guy Beveridge with Protectors Toolkit, Christian safety and security made simple. I'm so thankful you're joining us tonight. Whether you're watching us live right now, I'm glad that you're here, or if you're watching this in a replay, whether it's in your car or on your cell phone or on your laptop, I'm glad you're joining us for this special edition of Warrior Wednesday. I've got two great Christian friends with me tonight that are going to be joining us, and we're going to talk about safety and security for your fall and your winter events. I think that's something important to be planning for now as we get into those months and we have those type of activities that we're going to probably have at our churches. We're going to talk about that. At the end of the broadcast tonight, I'm also going to give you 7 ideas or 7 encouragements for how you can have a safer and more secure outdoor fall and winter events that you have at your location. But let's get some biblical guidance here, as we always do at Protectors Toolkit. For you warriors out there, Proverbs 18:15 tells us, an intelligent heart acquires knowledge and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. In the easy to read version of the Bible, sometimes the one I have to go to understand some of the big words, it says it this way: wise people want to learn more, so they listen closely to gain knowledge. And that's what we're really all about here at Protectors Toolkit, is for you warriors out there. And I call it warriors because it's plain. Bible, the Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name, and I know that I'm made in his image just like you are. So it's very plainly put to us that we are warriors. And if you're going to show up to your church and provide safety and security when those people come through your doors, the guests, the visitors, the staff, and they're getting comfort, refuge, worship, and learning at your environment, and you're providing a safe and secure environment for them to be in, you are a warrior, standing guard, standing watch against the savage lions and the roaring lions and the savage wolves that have been told they're coming against us. So thank you for being a warrior, and again, thank you for being here tonight. So I'm going to introduce a couple people to you, people that have just blessed my life. Jason Hensley and his wife Heidi. They are at Shadow Mountain Church out in California. That's Dr. David Jeremiah's church, if you want to point a reference there. Huge church, big size church, and I want to talk to them about this all important event because they do have a ton of events at their campus. So let me introduce Jason for you. Jason serves as the director of safety at Shadow Mountain Community Church. Prior to that, he was a police officer in California for almost 15 years. Some of his assignments included school resource officer, gangs, public information officer, SWAT, and active shooter instructor. Prior to law enforcement, he also pastored 2 churches in the Central Valley of California. And his wife, Heidi, Heidi's been a kids pastor for over 23 years and currently serves as the executive children's director at Shadow Mountain Community Church in San Diego, California, where they have all the nice weather. She's a mom of 2 boys and a wife to Jason. That's probably a mom to 3 boys, if I'm reading that right. She enjoys getting to coach and speak as time allows, and especially right in her downtime. She loves to surf and just be at the beach with her family. So to you, Jason and Heidi, thank you so much for being here tonight.
That's a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
So Heidi, I want to kind of get into this just a little bit. How tough is it to be the beauty and the brains in your
Well, we don't tell him that. He thinks he's got that locked down. So
I got you. It's probably the same in my house now that I'm thinking about it. So we do want to talk about, safety and security for fall and the winter events, whether it's an outdoor event or an inside event. We want to talk about that a little bit. We want to talk a little bit from the kids' angle too. And that, Heidi, you're just an expert, what I would consider an expert in that. A lot of these events will bring a lot of the unchurched to our doors and through our doors, and that includes the kids. So we want to make sure that we have advanced planning in this and we have the right mindset for safety and security. And then for you viewers at home, again, just stay tuned. At the end of this, I'm going to have 7 ideas on improving the safety and security for your fall and winter events. So let's kind of define what we're talking about here. Some of the events I've seen at churches around here, some of the events our church has, and maybe some at Shadow Mountain are the same thing. We have a trunk or treat. For Thanksgiving, we have a feast of giving or food serving to the homeless. At Christmas time, we have extra services for those people, we knew attended our church, but we hadn't seen them for the first 11 months, and now they're here for Christmas service. Live nativity scenes at our churches. We're getting a lot of new people. Christmas plays we may be having within our church, skits, stuff like that. So anything that just stands out there right away for you all, that something different or something you all do at your church as well?
I think it's kind of sounds similar. We have the very special Christmas services that draw the community. It sounds like we're in the same boat as far as pulling in community, trying to introduce people to the church at an opportune time. And it's a heavy mix. Even I think our heavy community outreach pieces, they pull in our regular core families too. So it's a little mix of everybody.
Heidi's also really intentional on the programming that they do or events that they do, that it's going to bring it back into the weekend.
Yes.
Very good.
The pastor that Heidi spent many of her years under in Stockton, Mark Mafucci, used to call these win events. And I love the thought and concept of that, because it is the ability to reach out to the unsaved community and then to bring them into your congregation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sort of like a no risk. Come in and try it because it's Christmas and we're all in the spirit, right? Come in and try it. There's no, we're not going to hit you over the head with a hammer about Jesus and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely. I think these are the events, and I like how he put it and how you guys put it. It's a win event. If we can just get you through the doors and let you see that church is not a big scary place and something to be afraid of, because quite frankly, I think we all operate in sometimes in some sort of fear. But if we can come into these spaces like this in a church and understand that everybody around me is just like I am, right? They're not special. Nobody's walking around with halos and angel wings and all that kind of stuff. So it does make it a real win event. I just love that. So the same type of events, Heidi, at Shadow Mountain. I see you coming in, Carson Cummings. Awesome. I'm glad you're here.
What's up, Carson?
Do you see more or different types of kids at these events outside of your regular church attendance?
We do. We see it's a combination of, you have our core families, and the whole goal is that you, like you said, you're introducing them to church. So the ideal situation is that they're bringing an unchurched family with them, and you have kids who have never been exposed to church or church functions, and they're there with their parents. But the reality, wherever I have served, is you have the neighborhood kids who just kind of see a party happening. And in Stockton, we had lots of inner city neighborhood kids that just kind of made their way there. They have no parent supervision. Nobody notices if they're gone or if they're there. So it really is a mix. And I would say that's true even here. It's churched, unchurched, and then a ton of unsupervised kids who have just decided that they saw bright lights and they're heading on over. Yeah.
So there's got to be some special struggles with that though too, right? What are some of the special struggles you guys see with that?
Special struggles would be, for me personally, as a parent and as a kids ministry leader, you notice who these kids are. Usually we try to notice who they are because it's not a check-in, check-out event. And so you're just taking a mental note of, where are they? Are they safe? Are they wandering off into a dark corner? Jason's team does a really good job of securing a perimeter. So if we do have that situation, they're aware. And then kids getting separated from parents is probably the thing we deal with the most. We have a great team of guys who are both on duty and off duty, just keeping an eye on things for safety. But kids getting separated from parents. And, that comes into making sure that our staff has eyes on everybody, that we have a process, that we know how to respond to that. And we're getting it on the radio as soon as we can.
Yeah, because certain events are different. Those kind of events are different than like what we would do, what we call Summer Blast or a traditional PBS. And that stuff you and I have actually talked about in past episodes. But, one of the things that Heidi does is she includes all the other ministries that are involved in the event. So whether student ministry and the junior high ministry, the safety team, we all will come in, and she kind of plans, and then each one, like my team, then we'll step away, we'll come up with our own op plan, and then we'll come back to that organizational meeting with everybody around the table and say, this is what we're going to do in order to create a safe environment for parents, family, congregation for this event.
Yeah, and that brings up a great point. I think sometimes in the church we get into our own little silos, right? So safety and security is in their silo, children's is in their silo, pastoral is in their silo, the behind the scenes, the audiovisual, they're on their own little silo. And if we do that, if we operate in that space like that, then we're not communicating to one another, then we are definitely going to see some breakdown, especially in communication, and definitely breakdown in execution of the plan overall if we're operating in those silos. So that's a perfect call out.
Yeah.
So, Jason, I know you and I have talked quite a bit. We've been on this together a couple of times. I know a little bit about your team. I probably know a bit about your team. But in these type of specific events, the fall events, the Thanksgivings, the trunk or treats, the Christmas events, what are some of the unique challenges you and your team face that other churches are probably going to face?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. I think that it is communicating with whatever department is the lead on it. I mean, obviously we do a lot with children's ministry, but we want to first of all get the structure and see what their target is, what they're attempting to do. And, Heidi or what other ministry is involved in it will say, hey, this is going to be a free coming and going. That obviously in itself changes our approach to safety. If it's like a VBS kind of format where those kids are in our circle, our area that we're wanting to protect, it's a different set of circumstances. So for us, we want to know what the event is, the purpose of that event, and we kind of create a structure that is going to allow us to then meet the needs to make that event successful. And so I think that's one of the big ones for us. As we've talked about in prior episodes, it's simple actually for both of us. Heidi has a super solid team that she can depend on, and they'll roundtable, children's ministry will roundtable it. I can take it 4 or 5 or 6 of my guys and roundtable and say, this is the event that we have got, that we're going on. We're supporting children's ministry or whatever it is. And so it's not just Jason coming up with it. And that's one of the things, that we've talked about it. Heidi's actually excellent at leading teams. And it's not only just kids ministry, but it could be something much larger than that.
Well, and it's not just leading teams. You had pointed out the different types of events and the different situations that you're going to run into. We all do these kinds of events, and whether your church is 100 or 20,000, whatever it is, once you've established the process, at Summer Blast, I'll have 1,500 kids on campus without their parents for an entire day for 5 days a week. So I need to know that the person that I've brought on, which is usually him, to create the procedure of a missing child, he has the authority to handle that. They're not coming and pulling me out of a room or off a stage if I have a missing child. Now I know about it most of the time, but I also know that I've given the proper authority to those team members to handle the situation, with that policy. That equipping and empowering your team is honestly the key to great events and keeping kids safe.
Yep.
Yeah, that's we're going to get into that here a little bit later about empowering the lines of communication. How do we who and command and control? Who is in command and control overall, but who also has the same authority? So that that's perfect. Heidi, you'd also unpacked a little bit about what I think is so important. I think protectors are wanting to know this question too. Is what is the procedure for a lost kid? What does that look like at Shadow Mountain? What does good look like?
Good looks like, so we'll start with a weekend service. If I have a weekend service, typically there's going to be 1,000 kids in our presence, or roughly there, that amount. We transition, so we go from large group to small group. So kids are moving about our building. If we have, our procedure is that the teacher counts the kids by name and then counts them again at arrival. So there's always that double number of comparison. If they get to point B and point B has a different number than what you left with in point A, the first thing that they're going to do is my leaders will get on our classroom walkie-talkies and say, does somebody have an extra kid? I'm missing Emily or whoever. Most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, it solves itself at that level. If it doesn't solve at that level, they radio one of my staff members who immediately puts it out to security. We don't have, for years I had a wait time because we didn't want to inflict panic, Yes. But our campus is so open that if within a few minutes nobody can account for a child, it is an immediate report over to Jason's team.
Wow. Yeah, that's perfect. It can't, especially with those large open campuses like that. And I think some churches still operate in that regard by design. They have to, because of size and scope, or just that's how they've always done it. And you have to be quick on, at the inception point where this happened, and then get the word out as quick as possible. And understand that we don't need to panic, but we need to operate efficiently at this point.
And then when we come in, we'll start, kind of like the law enforcement piece. You start where the child was last seen, and we just start expanding our grid from there. And that's where, Heidi's team is really, we can all jump on the same radio. So that's the communication piece, which is great. So we're all able to communicate, and then we start sending additional resources in to start trying to find kiddos. But I mean, we've been fortunate over the years that within, I don't know, if 10 minutes or less, even if a kid has just gone completely crazy rogue, that we're able to pull them in.
Yeah. The other thing that my team does before it hits him is if child has been missing from point A to point B, the first thing that is checked is if there are any custody issues in that classroom.
Wow.
And that's something that our leaders have right there on the clipboard. They know if they have kids with custody issues. That's the first thing we check. 5-6 years into serving at Quail Lakes Baptist, I had a kid picked up from large group back before we did computer check-in. And it was a dad who did not have custody, and he took her and he left. And that traumatized me as a leader. So that's something we pay attention to.
Yeah, I think I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know, just talking to various church insurance companies, that is one of the highest payouts they do, is mishandling of kids or hurt kids, as far as church insurance goes. So yeah, it's definitely an important part of what we do.
Yeah.
I know this will surprise you coming from me and what I do, but there's times that I joke that Heidi's OCD when it comes to her policies and procedures and stuff. But on the flip side, it is a good thing too, because that's what, creates that higher standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you are setting the bar that high that, we're not ever going to have a lost kid or a hurt kid in our facility, then, that's what we need to do with kids. It's a precious resource. I mean, we see in the Bible how precious they were just by the way Jesus interacted with kids. So we know it's a high dollar commodity, so to speak. Yeah. Very good. So Heidi, I know you travel around, maybe not so much now, but I know you travel around quite a bit and have traveled around quite a bit. So in your travels to these other locations, these other churches, what are some of the key security issues you see in the other children's ministries? Some of, maybe top 3 or top 4, what are the things that stand out to you the most, and things that you've seen?
I don't know if you're looking for good or bad, but I'm just going to go with the 3 that pop in my head. One, I think, is probably the thing that can paralyze any ministry, no matter how long you've been established, whatever. And it's the one thing I see the most when I do consulting. And that is, churches don't usually fail to have good policies. They fail to enforce them. Yeah. So you usually have a good plan, but maybe the plan is we have computer check-in, and that mom who is, I don't know, your senior pastor's wife, do you check her tag when she comes to pick up those pastor's kids? And that's the rule I see broken the most. And the part that people don't realize is, yes, that's who that child should be with, and she probably has the tags. She checked them in. You recognize that. But you're doing 2 things. You're setting yourself up for failure on the off chance that something happened during the week and there is now a custody issue. There is that possibility. The other damaging part of that is you are teaching the guest behind them, whose tag you will check, that the rules only apply to some people. Yeah. And it's a terrible first impression for a new family to feel like I've been isolated and everybody else here is family, but we don't know you, so we're going to check you. So that's a major one, is just following your own rules. One that I think is probably
before you jump off that, I think it's important also that when something falls apart, then it always goes back to the leader or whoever's overseeing that why you weren't following that policy, right? And then somebody's head's going to roll in the process. And so I think that's an important thing too, that you have to be consistent.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Another one that is kind of a secret, if you want to have the best kids ministry, safest, but also the sweetest, in my opinion, is you find the person in your church who can remember everybody's name. It kind of does a couple things. It makes the room. Now that's not me. I'll be really honest. We call her our Brianna, and she just left my team to homeschool her kids. And so I'm in the midst of replacing her, which breaks my heart. But we are able to know that if they come in that front door and Bree is there, she either knows their name or she's going to find it out and never forget it. And it's a great first impression, but it also makes it very clear that you don't come into this space without being known. And unsafe people don't like that. So it's a security thing. Most people would equate that to a hospitality thing, but it really is a security thing. And then the last piece is, I touched on it earlier, is just empowering your people. When you have that kind of a building that is, everybody knows your name kind of thing. When somebody does feel out of place, roaming through the building or whatever, giving your leaders the proper training and empowering them to just look somebody in the eye and say, hey, I noticed I don't normally see you in here. Can I help you? And again, huge point of safety, but also a huge point of connection. So you might find a new volunteer out of it. You also might discourage somebody from being on not a great path. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect because, I think sometimes we feel overwhelmed as a church protector that we're not going to see the wolf, we're not going to see the savage wolves that we've been foretold. We're going to be looking at everybody coming in and we're going to miss it. Well, quite frankly, those people really stand out. If you are actually paying attention, they will stand out. It's almost like they dressed in a highlighter or they have a spotlight shown on them. They stand out because everybody else has the right countenance. They have the right look on their face. Like I love being at church. I'm overjoyed to be here. I love being here. And those ones will not have the right countenance, the right look on their face, and they should stick out. Almost like I said, they're either that someone colored them with a highlighter or have a spotlight just over top of them. And that's perfect calling out that, the staff has to have that empowerment within them to not be too timid, to not be too shy. And if you're not comfortable approaching it because it's a female on a male situation, to at least have the ability and the capability to get on a radio and get someone over there that can.
Yeah, totally agree. I don't know who put that up at the bottom, but I'm going to steal that. The aggressive hospitality. That is awesome.
Yeah. We talk about that all the time here. Okay, so you may have already answered this, but I want to ask you this one too. If you had the ear, let's just say the Protector's Toolkit is the be-all, end-all of church safety and security, which we are. If you had the ear of every children's ministry director or pastor in the United States, because they're going to watch this, what is the one thing you would tell them? Don't be stupid.
Don't be stupid. Wow.
That's a loaded.
I know.
Yeah, right.
I have the ear of everybody in charge. What am I going to tell them? It kind of goes back to what I just said, the empowering of volunteers. Okay. Because you need people who are comfortable to engage in order to have hospitality, in order to have involvement and safety. Like all of that hinges on your ability to let go of some things. And as a leader, if I have to speak to every new person, or if I have to be the person who puts my hands on things, I'm going to compromise a lot of situations. If you want a truly safe environment, it's the first rule is ever be comfortable. Don't assume that your environment is ever the safest, because you have missed something and you will eventually run across it. But it's also empower people to continue to help you build that. As I've consulted over the years, that is the thing where a lot of churches, they get comfortable with the way it's always been. Yeah. And then they refuse to let go of things they love to do. And you have to, if you want to grow and if you want to be safe.
One of the things Heidi does is she does a yearly or bi-yearly training and I'll come in and speak to all of our volunteers and our staff, that kind of stuff. And we address the issue of, though they're in ministry, they're still called to be trained observers and paying attention to what's going on around them and making those observations. And just the idea of just continuing to train and reinforce that. And it might sound like a broken record, because it seems like whenever I come in, I'm usually teaching something real similar and the same, of giving them that tool. But I think it's important that those volunteers know and be able to observe what's going on around them. Yeah.
I know that at our church, at least, obviously I'm married to the safety director, so there's a little bit of an in there. But I know that I got the privilege to go. One of my friends is the family pastor at Joel Osteen's church, massive place. And so, I mean, you talk about Jason calls them tactical nightmares, all those situations. That place is crazy to think that you got to keep people safe in there. And she invited in the director of security to do some training with her children's ministry people when she got there. And she said that he told her that was the first time he had been invited in. And I almost think there's this little bit of this sense of, you got the officers or the safety people, and they're out here, they're around the perimeter. But how much better would it be if you had a really great relationship with them and you weren't silos in that? Your people are going to learn, but also your safety guys are going to learn what's going on too, because half of the time he would probably get called in thinking something was wrong. And that's just part of our program. Kids running through the halls or, something like that.
But we also have guys that are on my team. That's also on your team.
Yes. They serve in our ministry.
She has a SWAT lieutenant that serves in her ministry. He's the
safest 30-year-old class ever.
Yeah. In the nursery, just before quarantine, she had 2 special ops in the same classroom holding babies. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
We're not just good at growing beards. You know that, right?
Exactly.
But that brings up a good point, what you said there, because Heidi, it's one thing for you to empower your team and say you do have this ability. But it's totally different when Jason, the director of safety and security, comes in and gives his authority to them. When I go and teach, whenever I instruct, if I can get the head pastor or the senior pastor to introduce me first to the group, what that does is transfer his authority or the pulpit to me. And so people are paying more attention to the conversation I'm having with them. So, it's a psychological thing too. So that is absolutely perfect. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's good.
So, okay, I want to get into this, to 7 ideas to promote safe and secure fall and winter special events. And I'm going to take it from an actual event type planning and go through those kind of steps like that. So if you all are paying attention at home, we'll also put those up there for you, so you don't have to scribble your notes as I'm talking. And Jason and Heidi, if you want to jump in at any point as I'm going through these, please do, and share your personal take on this as well. So number 1 would be assess the venue's suitability. The event that we're trying to have, a trunk or treat, can we even have it here? Do we have the space? Do we have the parking lot? Do we have the workforce size that can accommodate this? What is the duration of the event? This is the type of pre-planning where we all sit down, everybody that's going to be a stakeholder in this, or anybody who's going to be responsible for anything in this event. We all come together and whiteboard these type of things. What is we need to know definitely the time and season we're having this, and then what are the existing hazards that we have? Do we have an adjacent high occupancy roadway that we have to accommodate and make sure nobody goes that area? Do we have some construction on our campus? Whatever it is, we have to, whatever the existing hazards we have to accommodate those too. And this is, again, where we throw ideas out there about everything in the pre-planning. And we want to kind of reverse engineer this as well. We want to, what does good look like? What does a great event look like for us? And then we backwards plan that in this initial stage. So we assess the suitability for the venue's location. All right.
I would get as many people as possible around that table at that meeting.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. For historical data reasons and just different eyes and thoughts on it as well. We've had this before, and here's some of the problems, all those type of things. This is a great learning environment where we get all of our problems known and made known to everybody that is responsible for making the event great. Absolutely. So every event, just like you have a risk assessment for your church, every particular event should have its own risk assessment. If we're going to be injecting new kids, unchurched kids, we're having a different style of our campus where it's more of an open campus. Those type of things should be done with a risk assessment individual for that event. I talk about risk assessments quite a bit here at Protectors Toolkit because they're so vitally important to our overall success. When we're doing a risk assessment for this individual event, whether it's a trunk or treat, it's a feast of sharing or something like that, or a Christmas play, something going on, we measure the frequency. How often could something occur? And then we measure the impact. What would happen if it did occur? So we look at the frequency of the number of people coming through our venue. What is the potential frequency that someone could get kidnapped, a kid could get kidnapped? And then what is the impact of that event if it did occur? And that allows us then to put more time, energy, and maybe even money and resources into preventing that, to mitigate as much as possible with that. Some of the things that we think we need to think about, obviously, is equipment. We don't want people electrocuted, especially during the fall and the winter events. We definitely don't want that. If we're moving lights around, we want to double check that they're secure, there's safety wires involved, all that kind of stuff that we sometimes kind of forget about. The AV guys, we want to, if we're doing safety and security, it's holistic. It's not just siloed, right? Crowd management, we plan for that. And what type of crowds have we seen in the past? What type of crowds are we advertising to currently? And what is our expectation? So we backwards plan there. What is the expectation as far as the number of attendees? And then from there, we build our staff and make sure we build in safety into our staff. It does no good to have 100 staff there as far as safety and security elements, and you've never trained them to the plan and let them know what success looks like. So we make sure that we train them because they should also be helping you with your risk assessment. If they're going to be responsible for making sure that everything goes well, then they should also be there in the planning stages so they understand the whole plan as it's being outlaid there. Obviously, first aid, we can't say enough stuff about first aid. You do want to, if you're going to pull some events outside, then we stage our first aid outside. Most of your first aid equipment, whether it's an AED or a trauma bag, it should be within 3 minutes of the patient. That's a minute and a half there and a minute and a half back. So make sure you're planning for that as well when you're doing the initial risk assessment. Do we need to add more first aid kits? Would this be a good time to inventory our first aid kits? Do we need to add another AED in this location? Are we having more people than we can accommodate with the current first aid that we have? And maybe we want to have some EMS on standby. Whatever that is, it goes into the planning stages right here. Children, obviously, go ahead.
Control kits too. We've talked about that. I think that's something we just implemented. It's not only because of an active threat, it could be any number of things. We had an incident 5 months ago where a guy was hitting our church parking lot and it required a tourniquet, and we had that to the spot in 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You know from law enforcement, the quicker we can stop some bleeding, the more lives we're saving. Just by having tourniquets on every officer's belt nowadays, we're saving 60% more lives. So, and you saw from the sheriff's shooting, how quickly she applied that tourniquet to her partner, definitely saved his life too.
Yep.
Children, we're going to inject a ton of children into these type of events, especially a trunk or treat. I mean, listen, if you're giving out free candy, I know I'm going to be there and all my kids are going to be there. So we're going to inject a lot of kids into our campus, and that's what we want. We want those win events like that. We want kids to come over because sometimes kids can be the difference between a family being churched and unchurched. They can just be persistent enough and saying, I want to go back to that location. I had such a good time, such a good experience. So we want to make sure we're accounting and accommodating for children. And Heidi has already called this out. We get the children's ministry involved with our safety and security planning. It's just a no-brainer. These people are professional observers. They know everything about children. If you want to know something about a kid, you go to the children's ministry and then give them the resources to make sure that they can have capability and ability to affect your plan. Okay. We accommodate for weather as much as possible, but God being God is going to do what God does. So we try to do it as much as possible. From forecasting, I don't know any other job on the planet where you can be as bad at it as you are and still maintain your job as a meteorologist. I just don't know. But we try to plan as much as possible with weather forecasting. We look at historical events during those same timelines as well, and hopefully that gets us where we need to be as far as weather. And then fire, obviously, that speaks for itself. We want to have fire extinguishers. Quite frankly, that's what I say about a safety and security team. A safety and security team is like a fire extinguisher. Very, very pretty and handsome to look at, but you hope you never have to use it, right? We make sure we have them. They're charged up. They're in the right locations. If we have something outside, like a live nativity, we have a fire extinguisher out there. Is it a potential for fire and there's some people out there, then we have a fire extinguisher. We have the necessary safety tools out there. So risk assessment was number 2 in there. Number 3, I think, is a big one for churches, and Jason knows this as well. Let your local law enforcement know you're having an event. If you yeah, if you expect them to be there, like on site, if you are encouraging that, let them know about 2 months in advance, because they have a lot of things going on, especially nowadays if you're paying attention. So let them know months in advance if you want them to physically be there. Now, the other ways you get law enforcement to your event: free food. I'll say that one more time for those in the back. Free food. That gets us there. We'll be there. It's not just donuts. Offer something other than donuts. Some of us don't eat donuts. All right.
Mocha and bagels.
There you go. Coffee, free coffee, snacks, something that's easy to take and put in a pocket if they do have to leave. Make it easy for them to get into your location and hang out for a little while. And you get some professionals there that are trained observers as well, and they will recognize the criminal element and maybe a lot sooner than you will. So invite your local law enforcement, sheriffs, constables, all that kind of stuff. Give them about a 2-week notice if you're just saying, hey, we want you to stop by. We've got some free food for your guys, your shift or whatever. Get with the shift lieutenant, the shift sergeant. About 2 weeks out, then about a week out, remind them. And then about 1 day out, remind them again. Because, look, we have a lot of stuff going on nowadays in the law enforcement world. So the more you can remind us, the more you can be in the front of our mind, the better it is, the better chances are we're going to come to your event. And again, free food for those in the back who may not have heard it yet.
You know, the other thing on that is just the community connection. I used to have a fire truck and 2 police cars out at the community egg hunt I did.
Why did you have to bring the fire truck into this?
And
they need heroes too.
They loved handing out stickers as much as we loved handing out Easter eggs. And what we realized, especially down here, I mean, we're 14 miles from Mexico. There's a lot of inner city kids who have never interacted positively with a police officer. And for many of them, that was their first engagement where it was good. So, I mean, that's really good for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The more you can get the
fire truck in there. At least let me just.
Don't you have someone considering being a firefighter in your family?
Yes, we do.
Oh gosh.
He's in the other room.
I'm going to pray for you, brother.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you can't all just sit around and play.
Pastor always says in these moments, hey, nobody send no letters or emails chastising a couple of former cop and a current cop. All right, let's move on now.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into some of this. Okay. So have an emergency plan. This goes without saying, but I think I need to say it sometimes, is we need to have an emergency plan for this specific event. It's not good enough to just have your church emergency plan. This is a specific event, specific type of community event that people are going to come to our church. The numbers are going to be different. The access to our church and our campus is going to be different. So we have to have an emergency plan for that specific event. Don't just blanket your emergency planning into this. You get a specific emergency plan. It can be very similar, but you have to have a plan that is specific for this type of event, these type of customers that we're going to be experiencing. And then most importantly, everybody that is responsible for good things happening, you make sure they understand what the emergency plan is. There should be no guessing on the day of. It should be drilled into the heads. It should be clearly understood. If this happens, a lot of times in the emergency planning, we do a lot of if this, then that. If this were to happen, then we're going to do that. And it's the easiest way to do some emergency planning and train your staff. Just go through those type of things that they could potentially experience. Lost kids. If this happens, then we're going to do that. Because what we want to do is program the brain. The body can't perform if the brain's never been programmed, right? The body can't perform if the brain has never been programmed. You're just asking people to grab things out of the air. No, so we program the brain ahead of time, if this, then that, and then we get the right performance out of them in that regard. It will be vitally important that you train all your team members to your emergency plan, because while they may know it for the church during normal events, they're not going to remember it for the specific event unless you have talked them through it and made them repeat some things back to you to make sure they have uptake of the information, and you program their brain for that. All right. We want to make sure that our event staff obviously follow safety and security. This goes back to Heidi's point, if we're asking one person to do it, then all have to participate in it. Just because we have a plan doesn't mean just you're a staff member, you don't have to follow the plan. No, if we have safety and security, it's safety and security for all. If we have kid check in and check out, it's check in and check out for all. You're not special just because you're on staff. We all play by the same rules for the same reasons Heidi explained. We don't want to isolate people. We don't want to make the first newcomers feel like they're not as good as us. That can turn people away. People are already looking for enough reasons not to come to church. We don't need to give it to them. Okay. We want to create checklists wherever we need a checklist. Wherever we want to remove doubt, we should have a checklist. Easy enough to laminate it. Someone can ready reference it right there. Whatever they need to be checking off on their checklist to make sure their piece of the puzzle is good, to give it to them. Make sure they understand, and we take out guesswork. We give them checklists to help out with things like that. We put signs where signs need to be, not only for customers, but for the staff as well. It's easy for us to gesture and show people, okay, go over to this location, follow the orange squares, follow the purple squares, whatever it is. Make sure we're making it easy for people to operate within our safety and security system that we've put together. Make sure, this is something that I see a lot of churches try to do, and I don't know why they try to do this. We hide our safety and security measures. I don't understand. Camera shots and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I can look up and see a camera. I don't know what it's necessarily seeing. Same thing with your safety and security team members. I understand we want to be out of sight and out of mind, but if the wolf is there, if the lion is there coming to devour us as we're told, then I want him to see me ahead of time. I want him to know that we're onto him. I want him to know that we're going to do something about it. If you start something, we're going to give that good, aggressive hospitality to these type of people. We want, by being visual in our safety and security roles and with our plans, we're not going to give away the farm, so to speak. We're not giving everything away, but we are going to be a great deterrent because our job is to prevent things from happening. That is the role of safety and security, prevention. We want to prevent as much as possible. We do that by being highly visible. That's why we put police cars out front of our church. We want them to know if you came here, you came to the wrong location, and we are visible on our team as well. So we make sure that we're doing that. We don't need to hide things under a bushel. We don't need to. A lot of times, there's a story I remember. There was a church that did an event, and they had a metal detector, and they tried to make it look like a bush. Well, you had all these people then showing up to the metal detector with guns and knives and things they should have brought through the metal detector. Had they known there was a metal detector, a lot of that stuff wouldn't be slowing down your flow of traffic because they would have left it in their car or wherever they came from. So we don't disguise our security. There will be probably some rovers in there who are unmarked, so to speak. But by and large, if these type of events, we want to be visible as a safety and security team member because people are going to come up to us, and the people that aren't there for good reasons are going to recognize us and hopefully turn away, and we've prevented an incident from happening. We also want to plan to be extra friendly to new faces, and this goes back to the aggressive hospitality. These people that are coming to do ill will or visit harm upon us, they will stand out, like I said, like they've been colored with a highlighter or they have their own personal spotlight. They will stand out. They won't have the right countenance. They won't be dressed the right way, and they probably won't have the right posture. So if you're watching for all those three things, the posture, the countenance, and the manner that they're dressed, you can detect these things that are coming against us and want to visit harm upon the group of people that are there. So watch that, and then give them some really aggressive, friendly hospitality. Hi, how are you, brother? If you reach your hand out to shake someone's hand, or a fist bump in the COVID area, or an elbow bump, then if they don't give you something in return, that is what we call a clue in law enforcement. Watch for that person, watch for those type of behaviors, and they will stand out themselves. They will mark themselves for you. You'll see the people who are flowing in and look like they want to be there and have a good time. Those ones who aren't there for a good time, they will stand out to you. And we need to have a plan and empower everybody that is responsible for this, for good events, that we empower them to make sure that we can give the aggressive hospitality, or we have the capability and ability to get someone on the radio that can engage with that person and give them the right amount of hospitality for our event. Anything else to add there, Jason or Heidi?
No, one of the things that I would quickly point out is I think a lot of times we're afraid that we're going to offend somebody, so we don't take that aggressive hospitality piece. And families that are coming in, whether they're new families or families that are there every week, they want to know that you have this stuff in place. They want to know that when they drop their kiddos off, that that area is going to be safe and protected. And so, I remember we went and visited a church years ago, and it was while I was still in law enforcement, and Heidi had checked in, and both of our boys were young at the time. And so she walked right through, and I'm putzing around, not paying a lot of attention. And she was wanting to go and audit and check out the kids' space. Well, I went to try to catch up, and there's two dudes that immediately stopped me and said, "Oh, sorry, sir, you have kids?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, they're." And at first I was like, "What do you?" And then I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's the way it should be."
Yeah.
And that little incident right there has always stuck out in my mind, and it's stuff that she trains all the time with her staff. And so, for those families that are new coming in, they want to see that kind of stuff in place. Mm-hmm. So that just kind of supports what you were just pointing out.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would add to it is, as you're training, we talked about calling on, whether you're the kids person or the safety person, calling on the other ministries to train together. That's a big deal. I know that during the COVID stuff, we've had all this extra time, and I've tried to get my team training on things that we hope we never encounter. So the sex trafficking awareness, the mandated reporting stuff that you hope you never see in your ministry. I think there's a lot of sweet people who come forward to serve, and they are shocked that stuff even happens in our world. But because of that, they have no idea how to look for it. And so just making sure that you are prepared for kind of the worst, and you hope that you never have to use it.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great call out.
Yeah.
So to both of you, to the Hensleys, to Jason, to Heidi, I am so blessed and honored that you would join me tonight here on Warrior Wednesday. I know our viewers have been blessed to hear from you all. And I want to encourage all of our warriors out there. It doesn't matter that you're not a mega church. It doesn't matter that you don't have 10,000 people flowing through your doors in your campus and you have multiple buildings. What matters is that you do what you can do and follow the right procedures for you, and empower your staff to do the right things in these fall and these winter events. They are unique events, and they need to be treated that way. So I'm so thankful again to Heidi and Jason for being here. I love you both, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon. So thank you all very much for being here tonight. For you warriors out there, I want to give a special shout out to Caleb Coates. Ray Coates, man, you are knocking it out of the park for Protectors Toolkit, brother. You bless my heart like no other. I see you every day commenting and giving some ideas and some tips, and just giving heart emojis and stuff like that. So, brother, thank you so much. If we had a warrior of the month, you would be it, brother. So thank you, Ray Coates, for being there. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the like and the share button. Make sure you go over to our YouTube page if you're going to watch this again. Go to our YouTube page and hit that subscribe button down at the bottom, and sign up for notifications. So when we have new videos like this, you get those notifications. You can watch them quick, fast, and easy. If you have not been to the membership site, this is the bread and butter of Protectors Toolkit. Please go to the membership site. There is no obligation. Use promo code Warrior Wednesday. Promo code Warrior Wednesday to get your first month for only $10. Get in there. Some of the best things we have in this ministry are in there in the membership site, and then you get immediate access to the membership Facebook group. That's a members only Facebook group where we share a lot of other tips and tactics in there as well. Speaking of that, for you warriors, you insiders, you people who are already in the membership group, tomorrow brand new hip pocket training is going to drop. If you want to know what that is, you got to be a member. So hip pocket training is going to share this video far and wide with churches and people that do protecting others. Share it far and wide with people if you can be blessed with this. Don't forget our Word and a Weapon podcast. Podcast number 2 is up in there. It is a word from the Bible, something that meant something to me during that week or that day, and I give you my thoughts on it, and then I give you a weapon, something you can take around in your day-to-day walk as a Christian, as a warrior, that you can use a ready reference or a guide, or a tool you can put on your tool belt or your toolkit. It's maybe something you may have to pick up one day to bless somebody and let them know Jesus. Don't forget, book your 2021 trainings now. Our calendars are filling up. We can only do so many a month. Your live in-person trainings, whether you want risk assessments at your church with training for your team specifically, you want one-day workshops, basic training workshops, you want one-day tactics, or you want a 2-day firearms class. Get those books booked with us right now at protectorstoolkit.com. And don't forget, warriors, as I always say,